always think that my family was pretty atypical to begin with.
Yeah.
So later on, I've come to realize more of this.
Yeah.
That the way my mother grew up, she grew up in a much more traditional family.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, my grandpa, or my opa, we distinguished him from my other grandparents. My opa is known as a very open fellow in general. Yeah. If there was people coming to his house, he'd invite them for lunch, and they wouldn't be given something outside in a plate. Rather, they would be coming into the home and sit on the same table with the whole family. Yeah. It was a larger family, so it's 10 siblings that grew up, 2 that didn't grow into adulthood, so it was 12 initially, but so it's a larger family, and my mother would talk about that there was often sort of strangers at the table, and so he's known in the surrounding ranchos as someone that they knew when they would interact with. Yeah. Yet the family in itself was quite traditional, and not such a stickler to some of the rules with vehicles and so on. Yeah. My grandpa didn't really do it himself so much, but he would sort of overlook when his sons would start putting the tires on the tractor and so on. He wasn't too strict about it, and they couldn't enforce it against his sons because they weren't baptized yet. So
yeah, absolutely.
Oma had a hard time sometimes with it. Yeah, but she's a deeply religious person, and she had a very sharp consciousness that and conscious that she didn't want to offend other people. So I think that was part of what drove her to be more traditional, more would be the right word, pious maybe in a way, but
for sure.
Though she was a very gentle lady. She wasn't strict. Much more in a loving way that she wanted to guide her family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on the other side, my Enns family from my father's side were known to be a bit troublemakers and rebels. Yeah. So my father grew up going to work seasonally in the U.S. and Canada together with his parents. He was the youngest, and so he, starting probably around age 11, he would accompany them to Canada and to California to work for seasons. Yeah. And just this general travel opened up their world, and I guess my grandpa just had a bigger view of the world, so it wasn't as strict, yet we lived in the Campos surrounded by old colony and much more stricter thinking and living people than we did. All of this, led to some interactions with people outside of the Mennonite community as well. More on a friendly basis, or work, of course, much more. But it wasn't unusual for, if a Mexican couple or a man or a woman would show up at our house, that my mother would go outside and talk with them as much as she could. I mean, her Spanish wasn't great, and she had a hard time communicating with them, but she would never hesitate to approach them or talk with them. So I think that was very unusual, and I, in a way, thought that I could never understand some people who would withdraw so much from that interaction. Because it's not what I saw at home.
Exactly.
So it took a while for me to understand why women would withdraw a lot, or I could never understand why men wouldn't want their women to at least go outside and say hi, and it's like, yes, my husband's not here, kind of thing. So it was much more open in that way. We especially had one couple from the local rancho that they were regular visitors at our house. They were a generation older than my parents. Their youngest was quite a few years older than I was. So most of their children at that time were married and out of the house. And occasionally the youngest daughter would come to my house. But it was almost a weekly basis. They would come and visit and spend a few hours at our place, and they didn't expect to be hosted as guests necessarily. The husband would always plow our gardens in the summer and help out with the little odds and ends that my dad needed help with. And the woman, Carmelita, she would be inside with us. She would help wash the laundry. She would help in the garden. She would help make lunch at lunchtime if they were there. She would always bring tortillas, homemade, fresh tortillas that were still warm when they would come. Yeah. And my mom in turn would give her some fresh bread or whatever bread and buns that we had at home and send them back with her. So I remember that little exchange is one of the memories that I cherish and that are just wonderful for me from all that time.